Happy Friday, everyone. Let's just jump out before we get into some of the news here. Let's talk about gold's retreated a bit. Boy, this is quite a market if you're actually a trader, which I'm not. I think we're down at 32.83 right now on gold. Just a few days ago, we just touched past 3,500. So that's an extreme amount of volatility for a precious metal, and that kind of infers that the big people are back in and they're trading this, and that's there's a lot of money being made and trading hands right now and lost, but it's certainly getting a lot more interesting. Of course, I'll remind people, Goldman Sachs, has I think a $4,000 target, but it's in the news quite a bit. You see, people are talking about it, and 32.80, I like it. That's a good price point. So in any event, I always like to just kind of throw out the gold there because it's a good foundational place to start to remind people of the importance of mining, and not just because of what we'll talk about is the trade wars and the need for all the critical metal for any kind of infrastructure or growing of energy that we're going to do, but for the financial system. I mean, that's at the end of the day, people are starting to clue in. You can look back at the 70s and see what happened in the 70s, and commodities did quite well. And in any event, gold, quite an interesting chart to say the least in the past month. And we'll move now into what's happening down south of the border, because and not just south of the border, because there's a lot happening there at a very, very high speed of change, which is great. And this one is a bit more interesting and controversial, and I'll dive into it a little bit more in the blog. But this whole discussion over Trump signing an executive order boosting deep sea mining. So the deep sea mining industry has lots of pros and cons. Once again, I'm not getting too much into the details of it, but it is a novel idea. It's pretty interesting. It's these nodules on the base of the floor of the ocean. This is being hailed by industry players as a pivotal role to secure American access to critical minerals. And of course, environmentalists and special interest groups are saying that it's potential ecological disaster. And of course, with everything, with every venture, whether it's energy or whatnot, that's vital importance, there's risk. There just is. Mining is extractive. Anything that's extractive, there's risk. It requires a lot of incredibly hard work with EPA, with water standards, with everything else. And it's good that you get pushback by groups to say, hey, we need to be very cognizant of this, because there's been incidents, and there's been, say with BP in the Gulf of Mexico / America. It's important that people are aware that, there has to be stringent regulations in place. And I've no bone to pick with that, but I would suggest that under the current climate, a lot of these groups have far too much say, and it's less really about actually caring about the environment. It's more about another agenda. But it is interesting. He signed this order just yesterday. It unlocks. It is a vast polymetallic nodule reserves found on the continental shelf, or just outside the U.S. continental shelf, and it's in international waters. So, how do they describe it? And I'll mention two companies that are actively pursuing this. These are like potato-shaped nodules, and they're rich in manganese, nickel, copper, and cobalt. All extremely critical and interesting minerals, essential to whether it's electric vehicles and any of the renewable technology kind of side of things, as well as applications in defense systems. So there is apparently, and once again, I haven't done a great deal of research into the underwater mining concept, but there's an estimated 1 billion metric tons lying within U.S. waters alone. That could add 300 billion to GDP and creating 100,000 jobs over the next decade. When you think of 100,000 jobs that would be focused on undersea mining, of course, that would get anyone thinking, "Oh, that's a lot of people on the water. How is this going to work? What kind of fuel are you using in these ships?" Lots of questions. But is this more of a smokescreen, kind of they're throwing this out there as an interesting news story, or is it real? we'll look at it a little bit further. I'm not going to spend too much time because um, I prefer dealing more with traditional mining. It's kind of like when you hear about someone saying we're going to go mine an asteroid. Uh, I just kind of shrug it off and go, well, if you can mine something underwater and it's economic and it's exceptionally clean and safe and successful, that's great. Once you're able to do that, then we can talk about going to outer space and mining an asteroid. In any event, this adds a whole other level of complexity though as well, especially when you get into international waters, because then it's maritime law comes into effect and who owns what. So it becomes, I think, an extra level of complicated once you go beyond your water border, I guess, or out far enough that international waters, people start to say, wait a second, you don't have a claim to that. You don't have a right to that. So in any event, it is an interesting approach, I suppose. But we'll see where that goes. And the main company that people think of, and they've got a very good website, is the metals company. That one is one I've seen a couple of presentations by. Very interesting concept. It's certainly the most advanced in this specific sector or in this race, really. Their target area is Clarion-Clipperton Zone between Hawaii and Mexico. And of course, once again, it's these polymetallic modules of copper, nickel, cobalt, manganese. They are completing a pilot collection test, and they're working with the International Seabed Authority on an exploitation license. So they need some ISA approvals and environmental impact sign-offs as some main challenges. But this is a company that's really at the forefront of this potential industry or effective industry. And we'll see when I do a bit more research onto it, really if it can be viable. The other one is a U.S. company called Impossible Metals. That's a challenging name because, I mean, it sounds like a challenging project. I don't know if impossible to throw in there into mining is a great. You tell me what you think. I don't think I would choose that as a word if I'm going to deal with anything that's already difficult enough. It would be like impossible technology. Like, well, I don't know. Let's think of a different name. Anyways, no offense. I'm just being kind of silly on a Friday. So this is considered environmentally gentle robotic harvesting of nodules. And they've built and tested underwater vehicles for harvesting. Once again, okay, interesting. This, as I envision, a little bit longer time frame, but with the adoption of AI and the Internet of Things and how these things will interact, and certainly robotics on a huge critical path forward of discovery and growth. Can these autonomous vehicles kind of probe underwater and pick up these nodules? Yeah, maybe. I mean, part of me thinks, yeah, why not? That doesn't sound like it's that far-fetched. And for the world we're living in, where we're thinking what it might look like in 5 years, autonomous cars, flying vehicles, all these other things, there's going to be a lot of change. And is that possible? Yeah, probably. And of course, there's a Chinese company as well. And they're aggressively pursuing ISA exploration claims. They're called China Minmetals Corp. They're not in production either, but they're backed by the Chinese government. So we've got one of each country pursuing, and of course, the metals company is by far the leading company in this sector right now. We've also seen another. I always like to jump into this too, Costco, because it's a good indicator of retail sector. So we've seen, because of gold doing so well over the course of really 7-8 years. I mean, it's done really well over the course of 20-something years, but my lifespan in the mining sector is really 8 years or so. It's getting much more retail acknowledgement, and we've posted articles once in a while, every year or two, about Costco and the gold bars just flying off the shelf. It's no different. They're selling gold bars and coins not only in person in the store, but also online. And they're close to spot, apparently. So if you've gone to a store, let me know if you're able to get close to spot. That'd be very impressive if you are. I know that they try to get you in the door with those cheap hot dogs. Maybe they're trying the same with the gold as well. But one investor spent apparently $30,000 on gold, uh, describing Costco as his gateway drug into the world of precious metals. And for that, I have to thank Costco, because the more that people realize that this is something that isn't antiquarian or just simply in history, and for old timey people, the sooner people realize that it is foundational to every government, the better. There's a reason why that they buy gold, and certainly have been buying gold. Now, there's tons of narratives as to why countries are buying gold, but even if you don't have any interest in knowing what the narrative is, the fact that they are is telling you something. It doesn't take a ton of marketing and budget to get them to adopt a crypto. Most of them aren't really interested. Not only that, I mean, China bans it; they have zero interest. So that kind of tells you something. Whenever there's full countries saying, no, we'll take the metal, thanks so much, because there's a historical amount of data. I mean, $6,000 years worth of data in regards to gold. But once again, it's this commodity discussion as we're moving in that we can kind of use the 1970s to some degree as a reference point to where we've been with hyperinflation over the last few years, and some are suggesting could be coming back with the amount of changes we're making. And once again, they're both because there's two different pathways seeming to go parallel of how you're going to deal with this, keeping the US dollar as the leading currency, whether that's a good thing or bad thing. My partial argument would be that the Biden administration was saying, we have no interest, we'll let China take over, whereas the US is saying, no, we actually want the US dollar to be the main focal point, and we want to have a renaissance or renewal of American excellence. That's going to require a ton of different things. It's going to require bringing back a lot of industry. Once again, not necessarily the same narrative of we're building industry, so there'll be lots of these well-paying jobs, in the tens of thousands. I don't think anyone necessarily wants to do line work anyway, but those will be robotic jobs as well. But it'll be more for security, as in national security, logistics security. And there's no doubt that at this point that anyone can argue that there isn't this final recognition that you have to have a secure supply chain, and handing it over to certain countries it has to take a lot of thought. And Canada is a focal point to this, where people are saying, listen, let's not even trade with the US, which I think is utterly insane. It's a death knell to you if you say don't trade at all with them, but all because they don't like Elon Musk and Donald Trump. That to me is disconcerting, because there should be, and there is, within all of Europe and North America and the West, a very decisive battle between those that want the West to be dominant still, and to be the main kind of player and to lead forward, and those that don't. And that's really the ideology. You either say, hey, we're just going to kind of send our money overseas, we're going to pay for all these things, and just we have to decrease our standard of living, and drop the innovation and let other countries rise up. Or do you say, no, I actually have a lot more interest in pursuing my dreams of fulfilling them for my family, creating a future for my family, and that, yes, I have every interest in being charitable. And even though I don't know people 5,000 miles away, I can always, be charitable towards them. But my interest is towards the small reference point I have, kind of when you peel an onion, a couple layers out of my family, my friends, my neighborhood, my city. I mean, it's hard, even when you look at psychological studies, it's hard for people to get an emotion beyond that, even with the amount of programming and even with all the advertisements to say, hey, look at this, and the images and whatnot. Really, people are built to know that they have impact when they're physically close to things. And that's really what we're responsible for. So this idea that we need to be internationally responsible for other people halfway around the world, to me, is not of any interest. It's not my job, my role. And if it is to you, that's great. you have every right to be. I would encourage you to go to that place then and work with them. If it's that impressionable upon you and it's that much of a passion for you. So that's is my hot take for the day. But when we're talking about Europe, we see, I think there's a $22 billion fund that they're putting together, but also focusing specifically on Greece. It was the European Commission Executive Vice President Stéphane Séjourne toured a gallium extraction facility integrated into Greece's existing aluminum operations. And this has been kind of seen as a bit of a turning point in the acknowledgement of they better hurry up and get on board this of seeking some autonomy as well in the critical minerals discussion, because maybe they're thinking, the reliance on the U.S. is wavering, at least for the next 4 years. These trade talks are exhausting, and people think sometimes it's going to come from one direction, that dealing, say, with China is going to be very difficult. Well, you can see right now dealing with the U.S. is extremely difficult. And this is the problem you can get into if you isolate yourself too much, and when your trade is so imbalanced. And I don't mean the trade imbalance as in dollar-wise, but that you don't have any control of critical, necessary items, metals, minerals for your existence. If you can't supply the basics, food, housing, healthcare, and the critical things for your infrastructure, for energy, and for defense, that's not a good thing. That interreliance is, I consider, very utopian, to think that there aren't people that have much more intense interest in bigger ideological platforms, rather than this notion that why can't we all just get along? In any event, very interesting to see that this is taking place there. Gallium, they're kind of pitching that Greece might become the Saudi Arabia of gallium. I hear that type of term thrown around for different metals all the time. It's interesting because Saudi Arabia is expanding quite a bit into mining as well. We've mentioned that before. We'd love to entertain some investment into Canada if we could. If we had the right government and the right system that was encouraging investment into Canada, it would be wonderful. So this project is along 47 different strategic raw minerals initiatives by Brussels for a euro $22.5 billion investment across 13 member states. This is clear. They're not saying that they're completely, like, this isn't to entirely swap out all fossil fuels, but it is kind of in their thought, the end goal would be to have no dependency, but to have dependency on critical mining instead. Very utopian, very idealistic, but hey, I love it. The attempt to have that level of critical minerals is outstanding. It's amazing. They're going to have a lot more than 48 projects, to say the least. We've talked about it a number of times over the years. We've written about it a number of years. The requirement and need or demand for, you pick the metal, is so astronomically high. And just one concept being, imagine if they start building all these robots. Like, how much metal is that going to take? I mean, those are going to have like life batteries in them. That's a ton of lithium, a ton of high-grade phosphate. Some might have cobalt, some may not have any cobalt. The metals alone, it's astronomical. I've written an article about the level of silver required if you wanted to try to go all silver. You couldn't even do it. So it's interesting to see what that would take as far as, well, how many mines would you have to open? That's an eye-opener for a lot of people. And I think logically it would go, that's never going to happen. There's no way that even under a Trump administration, you'd be able to open a couple hundred mines. I think that's very unlikely. China can, but it's very unlikely you'd see that in the West. In any event, it is under this entire kind of narrative of minerals being the new oil. And that isn't shifting. And it may slow down. It comes in waves and whatnot. But that narrative is the narrative that's moving forward. And it is real. How much it's going to replace the traditional oil and gas, that remains to be seen. But we have seen a significant move towards building out, whether it's solar, wind, certainly nuclear would be fantastic. And that requires a ton of metals. I mean, it's a ton of copper as well. So overall, we're seeing a lot more news. We're seeing, especially, which is great at the U.S. government level, whether it was with Biden, the acknowledgement of having to fund a lot of these projects, which we really celebrated, although I question how much was actually deployed. The same questions we'll have here is that, okay, there seems to be a lot of programs and a lot of policy directed to get things going. Let's just watch to see what actually develops. And certainly as far as Canada goes, if we see something similar, and there's been some promises by both parties, I'm kind of doubtful to some degree, but if we see that, that'd be pretty amazing. It would certainly send a big, clear sign that the mining sector is ready to and open and ready for business. So let's keep our eyes peeled. We're going to certainly know more next week, and certainly over the next this summer, I think a lot more is going to develop. And summer tends to be quiet. I think this year, I think it might be a little bit more active. Never mind the fact that we see gold prices where it's at. I think there's going to be a lot of snooping around looking to see who's thinking of buying who. In any event, have a great Friday. Have a great weekend, everyone. Look forward to seeing you next week. Lots of things developing, and hopefully everything will settle down after we get through this Canadian election, whichever way it lands, and we can kind of get back to someone having a plan to unleash the resources and the wealth that we have, and to make Canada wealthy. Help provide jobs and make Canadians wealthy. And encourage some, entrepreneurial spirit to get people out there working. And to me, that requires people funding businesses and not just, government dollars, hiring government consultants and providing work programs. I mean, those are make work projects that I'm not any fan of. I'd like to see actual companies being funded, small, medium, not the giant ones. No interest. I want to see small, medium companies, people being able to affect their community and have a good small-sized business where they feel that autonomy of, hey, I've got a good business that I'm growing, instead of this massive globalist idea that, no, we're just going to have a few ginormous companies and you're going to work for one. To me, that's not exciting. It's not interesting. I don't think a lot of people find that a very satisfying existence. Certainly those that are really that have that wild spirit of entrepreneurialism and wanting to make a significant change. I think if we see that, we've got a bright future ahead. In any event, once again, have a great weekend, everyone, and we'll see you next week.